Light Yagami, Lelouch, Senku. You already know those names. Everybody does. But here's the thing. Some of the smartest characters in all of anime, they're buried in shows that most people have never even heard of. We're talking protagonists who dismantle entire organizations without throwing a single punch. Characters who win fights using contracts. A girl with zero superpowers who systematically assassinates a school full of people who do have superpowers. Just using her brain. Today, I've got 10 hidden anime where the main character is genuinely, terrifyingly intelligent. And not a single mainstream pick on this list. No Death Note, no Code Geass, no Classroom of the Elite. None of that. These are the ones that slipped through the cracks, and honestly, some of them are better. Let's get into it. Starting us off at number 10, Gosick. Set in a fictional European country in 1924, this show follows Victorique de Blois, a tiny, pipe-smoking girl who basically lives in a library tower and refuses to leave. A Japanese exchange student named Kujo brings her mysteries from the outside world, and she solves them without ever stepping foot outside. She literally just sits there, listens to the clues, and reconstructs the entire crime in her head. She calls it her wellspring of wisdom, which, okay, that's a dramatic name for pattern recognition, but when you watch her do it, it kind of earns the title. She has an eidetic memory, encyclopedic knowledge of history, and the social patience of a cat that's been woken up too early. Now look, the mysteries themselves aren't going to stump you if you've read Agatha Christie, and the second half takes a hard turn into political drama. But Victorique as a character is genuinely iconic, and the 1920s Gothic European setting gives the whole show this gorgeous, moody atmosphere you don't really get anywhere else. It's a cozy entry point before this list gets considerably darker. Number 9. Beautiful Bones, also known as Sakurako's Investigation. Sakurako Kujo is an osteologist. That means she studies bones. She lives in a mansion full of animal skeletons. She has almost no social skills, and every time she stumbles across human remains, which happens suspiciously often, she reads the bones like you'd read a text message. She'll look at the wear pattern on a femur and tell you the victim's profession. She'll examine how a skeleton is positioned and determine whether it was suicide or murder. While everyone else is panicking at the sight of a corpse, she's just standing there like, fascinating. The sphenoid fracture is inconsistent with the reported fall angle. She's basically Sherlock Holmes if Sherlock Holmes had a very specific and slightly unsettling hobby. And the dynamic with her assistant Shotaro is great. He's the emotional human filter she desperately needs. The downside? There's this weird, magical girl-style transformation sequence every time she puts on her gloves to enter detective mode, which, I don't know who asked for that, but someone on the production team was very committed to it. Also, the overarching mystery never gets resolved in the anime. Classic. But as a forensic procedural, it's sharp and genuinely educational. Number 8. Talentless Nana. And this one, if you haven't seen it, the less you know going in, the better. On the surface, it looks like a typical Superpower Academy show. Students with abilities like fire manipulation, time travel, and necromancy are trained on an isolated island to fight mysterious enemies. Nana Hiragi shows up claiming she can read minds. She's cheerful, pink-haired, friendly, and then the show pulls the rug out from under you so hard you get carpet burn. I won't say exactly what happens, but I will say this. Nana has no powers. None. Zero. She's a completely normal human being, surrounded by people who could vaporize her, and she has to outthink every single one of them using psychology, environmental awareness, and cold reading techniques. Her kills are like Rube Goldberg machines. She exploits the specific limitations of each student's power. She fakes mind reading by studying body language. And the whole time, there's an immortal student detective slowly closing in on her, which means she's constantly one slip up away from being exposed. Does the show sometimes make the side characters a little too oblivious to keep the plot moving? Yeah, fair criticism. But watching a powerless girl outsmart a school full of superhumans is a premise that just works. And honestly, I'm surprised more people don't talk about this one. Number 7. The World God Only Knows. Okay, hear me out. I know this one looks like a harem anime. It is not. Well, it technically is, but it's actually a deconstruction of the entire genre wearing a harem costume. Keima Katsuragi is a high school student who is obsessively, fanatically devoted to dating simulation games. He's known online as the God of Conquests. He can romance any two-dimensional girl ever created. Real women? He has zero interest. He genuinely considers reality to be a badly designed game. Then he accidentally signs a demon contract that forces him to make real girls fall in love with him, or he literally loses his head. So now this guy has to apply dating sim logic, flag setting, route calculation, archetype identification, to actual human beings. And the wild part? It works. Not because the show is dumb, but because Kamer, despite his contempt for the real world, is an accidental master of empathy. He identifies the emotional void in each person and fills it. He sees through people because he's spent thousands of hours studying fictional versions of them. If you've ever played a visual novel, or honestly, if you've ever just been weirdly analytical about why stories work, Kamer is your guy. He's the most unique genius on this list, because his intelligence is entirely metatextual. He's gaming reality itself. And actually, drop a comment and let me know which of these 10 you've already seen, or which one you're adding to your watch list. I'm genuinely curious how many of these flew under your radar. Number 6. 91 Days. This is a Prohibition-era revenge story. No superpowers, no sci-fi, no gimmicks. Just a man, a plan, and a lot of bootleg liquor. Angelo Lagusa's family is murdered by the Venetti Mafia. 7 years later, he gets a letter identifying the killers. He changes his name to Avilio Bruno, walks straight into the Venetti household, and becomes their most trusted ally. That's the genius of it. Avilio doesn't attack, he helps. He saves the Don's son, makes the family money, eliminates their rivals. He builds a debt of gratitude so enormous that when he finally starts pulling threads, the entire family unravels from the inside. And the hardest part, the thing that makes this guy terrifying, is that he has to laugh, drink, and fight alongside the man who killed his little brother, every single day. And he can never break character. Not once. The show takes place over exactly 91 days, and there is not a single wasted episode. It's tight, it's bleak, and the ending is one of the most quietly devastating things I've seen in anime. If you like crime dramas that respect your intelligence and don't pull their punches, this is the one. Number 5. Kubikiri Cycle, or The Beheading Cycle. This is from the mind of Nisio Isin, the guy who wrote the Monogatari series, and it is animated by Studio Shaft, which means you are getting head tilts, surreal backgrounds, and dialogue so dense you might need to pause and reread the subtitles. The setup is classic. An eccentric billionaire invites a group of certified geniuses to her private island. A painter, a chef, a scholar. Each one the best in their field. Then someone gets decapitated, and now it's a locked room murder mystery. The protagonist, known only as Ichan, is the most interesting part. He constantly insists he's mediocre. He's just some guy. No talent, no ambition, nothing special. And yet, he's the one who solves the case. Not because he's the smartest person on the island, but because he's the only one not blinded by his own ego. He's an unreliable narrator of his own intelligence, and that's a genuinely brilliant writing choice. Every genius around him is too busy performing their brilliance to see what's actually happening. Ichan just watches, and then casually dismantles the whole thing. This show is not for everyone. It is wordy, it is philosophical, and it is unapologetically pretentious at times. But if you like your mysteries served with a side of existential crisis, it's hard to beat. Number 4. ID Invaded. This is an original anime, no manga, no light novel, and it might be the most creative mystery premise I've ever seen. There's a device called the Mizuhaname that detects cognition particles left behind by killers at crime scenes. These particles are used to build a virtual reality world, an id well, that represents the killer's subconscious mind. To enter this world, you have to be a killer yourself. Enter Akihito Narihisago, former detective. His daughter was murdered, and he killed the man responsible. Now he's a prisoner who gets deployed into these surreal dreamscapes as Sakaido, the brilliant detective. Every time he enters a well, he loses his memories and has to piece together who he is while solving the mystery. The id wells are visually insane. Gravity is reversed, people are fused into buildings, the sky might be made of water, and Sakaido has to look at all of this abstract chaos and translate it into a real-world criminal profile. A world full of snipers? The killer is obsessed with voyeurism and distance. A world that's constantly collapsing? The killer's psyche is disintegrating. And in the real world, Narihisago is arguably even scarier. He can psychologically profile someone so thoroughly through conversation alone that he can break them, just by talking. This show is Inception meets Psycho-Pass, and it deserved way more attention than it got. The only reason it didn't get it is because it's an original IP, no existing fanbase to hype it up. If that sounds like your kind of thing, do yourself a favour. If you're enjoying this list, by the way, a like helps push this video out to more people who are looking for exactly these kinds of recommendations. And if you're not subscribed yet, you probably should be, because this is the kind of stuff I do. Number 3. Joker Game. 1937, the eve of World War II. The Imperial Japanese Army runs on one principle: death before dishonor. If you're captured, you kill yourself. If you're compromised, you kill yourself. Honor above everything. And then there's D Agency, a covert spy organization whose entire philosophy is don't kill, don't get killed, and absolutely do not get captured, because a dead spy is a useless spy. This show is an anthology. Each episode follows a different D Agency operative on a different mission, infiltrating Britain, Germany, France, China. These agents have erased their personalities, their habits, their pasts. They are ghosts in suits. One of them calculates the exact number of steps to a safe house while pretending to be drunk. Another catches a double cross because a contact's handshake was a fraction of a second too hesitant. And hovering over all of it is Colonel Yuki, the spy master, who is essentially playing chess with the entire Japanese military bureaucracy and winning. Now, the trade-off for all this realism is emotional distance. Because the agents are trained to be blank slates and the cast rotates every episode, you never really get attached to anyone. Some episodes hit harder than others, but when it works, it's the most grounded, mature depiction of intelligence I've seen in anime. No superpowers, no dramatic monologues, just tradecraft and the constant, quiet understanding that one mistake means you vanish. Number 2. Akagi. A 13-year-old boy walks into a Yakuza mahjong parlor on a rainy night. He has never played mahjong in his life. He sits down at a table where a man is gambling with his life on the line. And he wins. That's the opening of Akagi, and it only gets more intense from there. Shigeru Akagi is not a strategist in the traditional sense. He doesn't calculate optimal plays and execute them with precision. He operates on a terrifying, almost animal intuition, combined with one trait that makes him nearly unbeatable. He genuinely does not care if he dies. There's a scene early on, a game of chicken, driving cars toward a cliff. Most people brake at the last second. Akagi accelerates, and that's his whole philosophy. In a game where both players are risking everything, the person who fears death loses. Always. The series builds to the Washizu arc, where Akagi faces an elderly sadist who plays a custom variant of mahjong using transparent tiles and actual human blood as the stakes. It is deeply, uncomfortably intense. Now, I have to be honest, there are two barriers. First, you need at least a basic understanding of mahjong to fully appreciate what's happening. The narrator helps, but some of the tactical depth will fly over your head if you don't know the game. Second, the pacing in the Washizu arc is glacial. A single hand of mahjong can stretch across multiple episodes. And the art style, those sharp Fukumoto noses and angular faces, is an acquired taste. But if you can push through those barriers, Akagi is one of the most raw, primal depictions of genius in anime. No friendship speeches, no moral justification, just two minds trying to psychologically annihilate each other over a mahjong table. It's incredible. And number 1, the top of this list, One Outs. If I had to pick one single anime that perfectly captures the idea of a genius main character winning purely through intelligence, no powers, no magic, no chosen one nonsense, this is it. Tokuchi Toa is a gambler who plays One Outs, a simplified one-on-one showdown between a pitcher and a batter in the backstreets of Okinawa. He gets recruited by a struggling professional baseball team, but because he has no professional track record, the team's greedy owner refuses to pay him a normal salary. So Tokuchi proposes a contract. 5 million yen for every out he pitches, minus 50 million yen for every run scored against him. Read that again. The penalty for giving up a run is 10 times the reward for getting an out. A single bad inning could put him in debt for the rest of his life. And here's the thing, Tokuchi is not a good pitcher. His fastball barely cracks 130 kilometers per hour. In professional baseball, that's batting practice speed. He has no special pitches. He has no supernatural talent. What he has is an almost terrifying understanding of human psychology. He doesn't beat batters with speed. He beats them by getting inside their heads. He disrupts their timing, manipulates their confidence, induces them to swing at pitches they know are bad because he's already broken their mental framework. He turns every at-bat into a psychological hostage situation. And off the field, the owner is constantly trying to sabotage him, rigging games, forcing him to pitch on no rest, manipulating the lineup. And Tokuchi sees it all coming. He counter-manipulates every scheme, often turning the owner's sabotage into a way to make even more money. There's one sequence where the owner tries to exhaust him by forcing consecutive starts, and Takuchi responds by intentionally loading the bases, raising the tension to a breaking point, and then executing a triple play. The owner tried to break him, and Takuchi made him watch while he turned the trap into a payday. Every victory is explained. Physics, psychology, game theory, contract law. There is nothing convenient about how Takuchi wins. It is pure, earned intellectual dominance, and it is deeply satisfying to watch. The animation is admittedly not flashy. It leans on still frames and visual metaphors more than fluid motion. And the villains, especially the owner, can be a bit cartoonishly greedy. But honestly, those are minor complaints against what is, in my opinion, the single best genius protagonist anime that almost nobody talks about. If you watch one show from this list, make it this one. Now, if you want to keep this momentum going, I've got another video right here. 10 Chinese anime with crazy good animation. Because trust me, there are some absolute visual stunners coming out of China right now that most people are sleeping on. I'll see you there.